The bullet had torn through Vincent Zane's shoulder 3 days ago, and fever had set in by the second night, turning his world into a haze of fire and ice as he stumbled through the pine forests of northern Nevada in late September of 1878. He had been riding dispatch between Virginia City and Verde when the robbery attempt happened, 3 men wanting the payroll he carried for the railroad company. And though he had managed to escape with his life, and the money still secured in his saddlebag, the wound was killing him slowly with each passing hour. His horse had thrown him yesterday after he lost consciousness in the saddle, and now he walked on foot, knowing he would die out here alone if he did not find help soon. The morning sun filtered through the yellow leaves of aspens mixed among the pines, and Vincent could barely focus his eyes anymore. His shirt was soaked with sweat despite the cool mountain air, and the makeshift bandage he had tied around his shoulder had long since soaked through with blood and pus. He knew infection when he felt it, having survived the war back east as a young man, and this one was bad. His canteen had run dry hours ago, and his throat felt like sandpaper. He stumbled over a root and fell to his knees, gasping. The forest spun around him. Maybe this was it. Maybe he would just lie down here and let the fever take him. At 26 years old, he had lived longer than many men in this rough country. But something in him refused to quit, the same stubborn streak that had kept him alive through Gettysburg and Antietam. Vincent forced himself back to his feet and took another step forward. Then another. The trees seemed to close in around him, and he could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. His vision narrowed to a tunnel, and he knew he was about to pass out again. That was when he saw her. At first he thought she was a hallucination, a fever dream conjured by his dying brain. She knelt beside a cluster of plants with small purple flowers, carefully cutting stems with a knife and placing them in a woven basket at her side. She wore a simple dress of deep green calico, practical and worn but clean, with her dark hair pulled back in a long braid that fell past her shoulders. Her face was turned away from him, focused on her work. Vincent tried to call out, but his voice came as barely a whisper. He took another step toward her, and his legs finally gave out. He crashed through some brush as he fell, and the noise made her turn. Their eyes met for just a moment. Hers were a striking shade of amber, like honey held up to sunlight, and they went wide with surprise. Then the darkness took him completely. When Vincent opened his eyes again, he had no idea how much time had passed. He lay on something soft, a bed or cot, and a roof was above him instead of sky. The fever still burned through him, but someone had removed his shirt and replaced the filthy bandage with clean white cloth that smelled faintly of herbs. A cool compress rested on his forehead. He turned his head, which took enormous effort, and saw her moving about a small cabin. She was stirring something in a pot over the fireplace, and the smell made his stomach clench with hunger he had not felt in days. The cabin was neat and organized, with dried plants hanging from the rafters in bundles and shelves lined with jars of what looked like preserved foods and various preparations. "You are awake," she said, noticing his movement. She set down her wooden spoon and came to his side, placing her hand on his forehead. Her touch was gentle and cool. "The fever is still high. You need to drink this." She helped him sit up partway, supporting his back with surprising strength for someone of her slender build, and brought a cup to his lips. The liquid tasted bitter and earthy, but he drank it down as she instructed. "What is your name?" she asked, easing him back down onto the pillows. "Vincent," he managed, his voice rough. "Vincent Zane." "I am Zara Jennings," she said. "You are very sick. The bullet wound in your shoulder was badly infected. I have cleaned it and applied a poultice, but you will need several days of treatment before the fever breaks. How did I get here?" he asked. "You collapsed near where I was gathering herbs. I could not carry you myself, so I went back to town and hired 2 men with a wagon to help bring you here. That was yesterday morning." Vincent tried to process this. She had gone to that much trouble for a stranger. Why? Zara looked at him with those remarkable amber eyes. "Because you would have died if I left you there. I am a healer. It is what I do." Over the next several days, Vincent drifted in and out of consciousness as the fever raged through him. In his lucid moments, he became aware of Zara's constant care. She changed his bandages multiple times a day, applying fresh poultices that smelled of strange combinations of plants. She made him drink bitter teas and thin broths. She bathed his face and chest with cool water when the fever spiked highest. She barely seemed to sleep. On the 4th day, the fever finally broke. Vincent woke in the early morning to find his mind clear for the first time since the shooting. His shoulder still hurt, but the burning agony had dulled to a manageable throb. He felt weak as a newborn calf, but he was alive. Zara was asleep in a chair beside his bed, her head resting on her folded arms on the edge of the mattress. In the gray dawn light coming through the window, Vincent could see the exhaustion in her face, the dark circles under her eyes. She had worn herself out taking care of him. He studied her face while she slept. She looked to be around his own age, maybe a year or 2 younger. Her features had a delicate quality, with high cheekbones and a straight nose, but there was strength there too in the set of her jaw. Her hands, resting near her face, were small but showed the calluses and slight staining of someone who worked with plants and herbs constantly. As if sensing his gaze, Zara stirred and lifted her head. She blinked a few times, then focused on him. A smile crossed her face, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. "Your eyes are clear," she said. "The fever has broken." "Thanks to you," Vincent said. "You saved my life." Zara stood and stretched, working the stiffness from her neck. "I did what any healer would do. Let me check your wound." She unwrapped the bandage carefully. The bullet hole in his shoulder looked angry and red, but the flesh around it no longer had that deadly hot swelling of infection. The exit wound on his back was similar. "It is healing," Zara said with satisfaction. "You were fortunate. The bullet passed cleanly through without hitting bone or major blood vessels, but the infection nearly killed you anyway. You must have been riding for days with this wound." 3 days, Vincent confirmed. "I was carrying railroad payroll when I got ambushed. Could not risk stopping where those men might catch up to me." "The payroll is safe," Zara assured him. "I have it hidden. No one knows you are here except the 2 men who helped me bring you, and I paid them well to keep silent." Vincent felt relief wash over him. Losing that money would have cost him his job, and railroad work was the best-paying employment he had found since coming west. "I owe you more than I can repay." "You owe me nothing except to rest and heal properly," Zara said. She went to the fireplace and ladled some broth into a bowl. "Can you sit up?" With her help, Vincent managed to prop himself up against the pillows. She handed him the bowl and a spoon, and he ate slowly, feeling strength return with each bite. The broth was rich and flavorful, with vegetables and some kind of meat. "Where did you learn healing?" Vincent asked between spoonfuls. Zara settled back into her chair. "My mother was a healer, and her mother before her. They taught me everything about plants and their properties. Which ones stop bleeding, which ones fight infection, which ones ease pain or bring down fever. I have been gathering and preparing medicines since I was a small child." "Do you live here alone?" The question came out before Vincent could stop it, and he realized it might be too personal, but Zara did not seem offended. "Yes, I moved here 2 years ago from California. My parents passed within months of each other from pneumonia, and I had no other family." A woman alone faces difficulties in most places, but Verdi needed a healer, and the townspeople have been kind enough. I treat their ailments, deliver their babies, and tend their injuries. In return, they help me with things I cannot do myself and trade me food and supplies for my medicines. It must be lonely, Vincent said. Something flickered across her face, a quick shadow of emotion before her expression smoothed again. Sometimes, but I have my work and I have learned to be comfortable with my own company. Loneliness is better than staying where you are not wanted. Vincent heard something behind those words, some old hurt, but he did not press. He was too tired, and he had no right to pry into her past when she was being so kind to him. You should rest more, Zara said, taking the empty bowl from him. Sleep is as important as any medicine for healing. Vincent found himself drifting off again, and this time his sleep was deep and dreamless, the sleep of true recovery rather than fever. When he woke again, it was afternoon, and Zara was working at a table near the window, grinding something in a stone mortar with a pestle. The rhythmic sound was soothing. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching in her dark hair and turning it to deep brown with hints of red. "What are you making?" Vincent asked. Zara looked up, and again that small smile crossed her face. "A salve for burns." One of the children in town pulled a pot of boiling water onto herself yesterday. Her mother came to me in a panic. "The child will be fine, but she will need this applied several times a day for the next week." "You are busy," Vincent observed. "Always," Zara said, "especially as winter approaches. People want to stock up on remedies for coughs and fevers before the snow comes, and I need to gather as many herbs as I can before the first hard frost kills them off for the season." "I am keeping you from your work," Vincent said, feeling guilty. "Nonsense. You are my work. The other things can wait." She finished grinding the herbs and began mixing them with what looked like rendered fat in a small pot. "Besides, it is nice to have company, someone to talk to besides myself and the birds." Over the following days, Vincent grew stronger. By the end of the first week, he could sit up on his own and even stand with Zara's assistance. By the middle of the second week, he could walk around the cabin, though his shoulder was still stiff and painful if he moved it too much. During this time, he learned more about Zara and her solitary life. She had been 23 when she came to Verdi, alone and grieving, with nothing but a wagon full of supplies and her knowledge of healing. She had built this cabin with help from some of the local men. On land she purchased with money she had saved over the years from selling medicines in California. The location was perfect for a healer, nestled in the forest with easy access to countless medicinal plants, yet close enough to town that people could reach her when they needed help. She told him about the plants she gathered, walking him through the hanging bundles and explaining their uses. Yarrow for stopping bleeding and bringing down fever, elderberry for respiratory ailments, willow bark for pain, valerian root for sleep, echinacea for strengthening the body against sickness, calendula for wounds. The list went on, and Vincent was amazed by the depth of her knowledge. "How do you remember it all?" he asked one afternoon as she prepared one of her countless remedies. "The same way you remember how to ride a horse or shoot a gun," Zara said. "Practice and repetition. I have been working with these plants since I was 5 years old. It is as natural to me as breathing." Vincent found himself watching her more and more as the days passed. The way she moved through her cabin with quiet efficiency, every motion purposeful and graceful. The way she hummed softly to herself while working, old folk songs he half remembered from his childhood. The way her face lit up when a particular remedy worked well, or when she discovered something new about a plant's properties. He also noticed the way the townspeople treated her when they came to the cabin for medicines or treatment. They were respectful, even grateful, but there was a distance there. They did not linger to chat. They did not invite her to social gatherings. They took her services and paid her and left. One day, after a woman had come to collect medicine for her husband's gout and departed with barely more than a thank you, Vincent asked Zara about it. "Do the townspeople not like you?" Zara was washing her hands in a basin and she paused. "They like me well enough. But a woman living alone, unmarried, without family or connections to anyone in town, makes people uncomfortable. They appreciate what I can do for them, but they do not want me getting too close to their families. Some worry I might have a bad influence on their daughters. Some think there must be something wrong with me to choose this kind of life, and some, I think, are simply suspicious of anyone who is different." "That is not fair," Vincent said. "No," Zara agreed, "but it is the way of things. I learned long ago not to expect fairness from the world." She dried her hands and turned to face him. "It does not bother me much anymore. I have my work, and that gives my life meaning and purpose." But Vincent could see it did bother her, at least a little. He could see it in the way her shoulders slumped slightly when yet another person left without a kind word. In the careful way she maintained her distance from others, even as she helped them. As Vincent continued to heal, he began helping Zara with small tasks around the cabin. At first, just simple things like stirring a pot while she worked on something else, or holding jars steady while she filled them. But as his strength returned, he took on more. He chopped wood for her fireplace, building up a supply for winter. He repaired a section of her roof that had been leaking. He reinforced the door frame and fixed the latch on one of her shutters. These were tasks that would have been difficult or impossible for her to do alone, and he could see her genuine gratitude. "You do not have to do all this," Zara said one evening as he came in with another load of firewood. "You are still healing." "I am mostly healed," Vincent said, stacking the wood neatly by the fireplace. "And you saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you are set up properly for winter." "You already delivered the railroad payroll and collected your pay," Zara pointed out. "The railroad agent came by last week when you sent word. Your obligation is fulfilled." "This is not about obligation," Vincent said, surprising himself with the vehemence in his voice. "You have been kinder to me than anyone has in years. You took care of me when I was dying, asking nothing in return. You live out here alone without anyone to help you with the heavy work. If I can make your life a little easier before I leave, I am going to do it." The words hung in the air between them. Before I leave. Neither of them had spoken directly about when Vincent would go, though they both knew he would have to eventually. His job was in Virginia City and Verdi, riding dispatch and doing odd jobs for the railroad. He could not stay in this cabin forever, but he found himself not wanting to think about leaving. "Not yet." Zara looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her amber eyes. Then she nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. "Your help means more than you know." That night, as Vincent lay in the bed that Zara had given up for him while she slept on a makeshift pallet near the fireplace, he stared at the ceiling and tried to sort out his feelings. He had been alone for most of his adult life, keeping people at a distance since the war had taken so many friends and left him hollow inside. He had convinced himself he preferred it that way, that connection and attachment only led to pain. But something about Zara had worked its way past his defenses. Maybe it was the way she had cared for him so selflessly. Maybe it was recognizing a kindred spirit, someone else who had learned to be alone. Or maybe it was simply her, the gentle strength of her, the quiet competence, the flashes of humor he occasionally glimpsed beneath her serious demeanor. He was falling for her. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He was falling for this woman who had saved his life, and he had no idea what to do about it. The next day, Vincent rode into Verdi to check in with the railroad office and collect any messages. His shoulder was still stiff, but he could manage. The town was small but growing, built around the railroad that had come through several years earlier. Wooden buildings lined the main street, and the sound of construction echoed from somewhere in the distance as more structures went up to accommodate new arrivals. The railroad agent, a fussy man named Horace Pemberton, greeted him with relief. "Zane, good to see you up and about. We heard you took a bullet during that robbery attempt." "I am recovering," Vincent said. "What have you got for me?" Pemberton shuffled through some papers. "Nothing urgent right now. Take another week or two to heal up properly. We have got other fellows handling the local runs. But there is a big shipment coming through in 3 weeks, and we will need you for that. Important documents that need a reliable man." "I will be ready," Vincent said. As he left the railroad office, he ran into a familiar face. Tom Brennan had worked with Vincent on several jobs, a good man who could be counted on in a tight spot. "Vincent." Tom clapped him on the good shoulder. "Heard about your trouble. You all right? Getting there?" "The healer outside town, Miss Jennings, patched me up." Tom's expression changed, becoming guarded. "That woman who lives alone in the woods. You've been staying out there with her. She saved my life," Vincent said, bristling at the tone. "I am sure she did." "I am not saying she is not good at what she does. Just saying people talk. A single man staying alone with a single woman, no chaperone, no family around. It does not look proper." Vincent felt anger rise in his chest. There was nothing improper about it. "I was half dead from fever for most of the time, and she is a professional healer doing her job." Tom held up his hands. "Hey, I am not judging. Just telling you what folks are saying. Might want to be careful about your reputation. And hers." Vincent walked away before he said something he would regret. But Tom's words gnawed at him. He had been so focused on his own recovery and on helping Zara that he had not considered how it might look to others. In a small town like Verdi, reputation mattered. Zara already lived on the edges of social acceptance. Having an unmarried man staying in her cabin for weeks could damage what little standing she had. When he returned to the cabin, Zara was working in her garden, carefully harvesting the last of her vegetables before the first frost. She looked up as he approached, shading her eyes against the afternoon sun. "How was town?" she asked. Vincent dismounted. He had borrowed the horse from the livery, promising to return it before evening. "Fine. The railroad does not need me for another few weeks." Zara nodded and went back to her work, pulling carrots from the earth and placing them in a basket. Vincent stood there, watching her, trying to figure out how to say what needed to be said. "People are talking," he finally said. "About me staying here with you." Zara's hands stilled for a moment, then continued their work. "I expected they would. Does it bother you?" She sat back on her heels and looked at him directly. "People have talked about me since I arrived here. This is just one more thing for them to whisper about. It will pass." "But what if it does not? What if it affects your position here, your ability to work?" "Then I will deal with that if it happens." Zara pulled another carrot, shaking the dirt from its roots. "I am not going to turn someone away who needs healing because I am worried about gossip. That would make me a poor healer and a coward." "You are neither of those things," Vincent said. Zara smiled slightly. "Thank you, but I have made my choices and I will live with the consequences." She paused, then added more quietly, "Besides, you will be leaving soon anyway. Once you are fully healed and strong enough to go back to work, you will return to your normal life. The talk will die down once you are gone." Vincent should have agreed. It was the logical thing, the sensible thing. But instead he heard himself say, "What if I do not want to leave?" The words hung between them. Zara looked up at him, surprise clear on her face. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. Vincent knelt down beside her in the garden. "I mean, what if I wanted to stay, not in your cabin," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "I could build my own place nearby or find a room in town. But I could still help you. With the heavy work, with gathering supplies, with whatever you need. And I could still take jobs for the railroad when they come up. It is not like they need me every single day. Why would you want to do that?" Zara asked. Her voice was steady, but he could see the rapid pulse at her throat. "Because," Vincent said, and then found himself at a loss for words. How could he explain what he barely understood himself? "Because I am tired of being alone. Because you make me feel like maybe there is more to life than just surviving day to day. Because when I think about leaving here and never seeing you again, it feels wrong." Zara set down her basket. Her hands were trembling slightly. "Vincent, I do not need you to feel obligated to me because I healed you. I told you before, you owe me nothing." "This is not about obligation," Vincent said fiercely. "Can you honestly tell me you feel nothing? That these weeks have meant nothing to you?" For a long moment, Zara said nothing. "Then, what I feel does not matter. I learned a long time ago not to hope for things I cannot have." "What do you mean?" Zara stood, brushing dirt from her dress. "I mean that I have chosen a life that does not leave room for certain things. I am a healer, a woman alone. Men do not want women like me. They want wives who will keep house and raise children and fit into proper society. They do not want someone who spends her days elbow deep in herbs and poultices, who would rather deliver a baby than attend a church social, who has ideas and opinions and refuses to be decorative and silent." "I am not most men," Vincent said. "Are you not?" Zara turned to face him. "You are a good man, Vincent, honorable and kind, but you barely know me. You have seen me here in my element taking care of you. You have not seen how uncomfortable I make people in town, how the respectable ladies cross the street to avoid me. You have not dealt with the whispers and the judgment that would come from being associated with someone like me. And once the gratitude and the novelty wear off, you would realize what a burden I am." Vincent stood as well, closing the distance between them. "You are not a burden. You are the strongest, most capable woman I have ever met. You saved my life, yes, but you have done more than that. You reminded me what it feels like to care about something beyond my next job or my next meal. You make me want to be better, to do more." Zara shook her head, but he could see tears gathering in her eyes. "Do not say things you do not mean." "I have never meant anything more," Vincent said. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently took her hand. "I know this is sudden. I know we have only known each other for a few weeks, but I also know that I do not want to walk away from whatever this is between us, not without seeing where it might lead." A tear escaped and rolled down Zara's cheek. "I am afraid," she whispered. "Of what?" "Of hoping. Of believing. Of letting myself care about you and then losing you." Her voice broke slightly. "Everyone I have ever cared about has left me, one way or another. My parents, the few friends I had in California who turned away when I needed them most. I built this life to protect myself from that kind of pain. And now you are asking me to risk it all over again." Vincent squeezed her hand gently. "I cannot promise you that nothing will ever go wrong. This is a hard land, and life is uncertain, but I can promise you that I will not walk away lightly. I can promise you that whatever we might build together would matter to me, that you matter to me." Zara searched his face as if trying to read the truth there. Then, slowly, she squeezed his hand back. "I do not know how to do this," she admitted. I have never been with anyone before," understanding dawned. "Neither have I," Vincent said. "Not really. There were camp followers during the war, but that was just it, did not mean anything. Since then, I have been alone." "So we are both fools," Zara said, but she was almost smiling through her tears. "Maybe, but we can be fools together." Zara laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy that transformed her face. Before Vincent quite knew what was happening, she had stepped into his arms and he was holding her, feeling the warm solidity of her against him. She fit perfectly, her head tucked beneath his chin, her arms wrapped around his waist. They stood like that for a long time, in the garden with the late afternoon sun slanting through the trees, and the smell of earth and growing things all around them. Vincent felt something in his chest loosen, some knot of loneliness and fear that he had carried for so long he had forgotten it was there. "This is going to complicate things," Zara murmured against his chest. "I know. People will talk even more. Let them. I am still going to be difficult, stubborn and opinionated and more interested in my healing work than in being proper." "Good." Zara pulled back just enough to look up at him. "Are you sure about this?" Instead of answering, Vincent leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle and tentative, a question as much as a statement. Zara stiffened for just a moment, then melted against him, kissing him back with a sweetness that made his heart ache. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Zara's cheeks were flushed, her amber eyes bright. "Oh," she said softly, "I see." "Does that answer your question?" Vincent asked, his voice rough. "It is a start," Zara said, but she was smiling fully now, the kind of smile that lit up her whole face and made her beautiful beyond words. Over the next few days, they navigated this new territory between them with a mixture of joy and awkwardness. Vincent did move out of the cabin, finding a room at the boarding house in Verdi, but he rode out to Zara's place every day. He helped her finish preparing for winter, cutting and stacking wood, repairing tools, reinforcing the chicken coop she kept behind the cabin. He also began courting her properly, or as properly as was possible given their circumstances. He brought her small gifts from town, a new knife for cutting herbs, a warm shawl for the cooling weather. She packed him lunches when he worked outside, and they shared meals together, talking about everything and nothing. They also talked about their pasts, sharing the stories that had shaped them. Vincent told her about the war, about the friends he had lost, and the nightmares that still woke him sometimes in the dead of night. Zara told him about her childhood in California, about learning healing from her mother and grandmother, and about the man she had nearly married before discovering he wanted her to give up her healing work and become a conventional wife. "I told him I could not do that," Zara said one evening as they sat together on the porch of her cabin, watching the stars come out. "Healing is not just something I do, it is who I am. Asking me to give it up would be like asking me to stop breathing." He could not understand that. He said I was being selfish and unwomanly, so I ended it. "He was a fool," Vincent said. "Maybe, but many men would feel the same way. Even now, I wonder if you truly understand what you are signing up for. There will be times when I am called away in the middle of the night for an emergency. Times when I am exhausted from delivering a baby or sitting vigil with someone who is dying. Times when I smell like strange herbs and have no time to cook a proper meal. And there will be times when I have to leave for days or weeks on railroad business," Vincent countered. "Times when I come home tired and dirty. Times when the work is dangerous and you will worry. Neither of us is choosing an easy path. But we are choosing it together," Zara said quietly. "Together," Vincent agreed. As October deepened into November, they became a familiar sight around Verdi. Vincent riding out to Zara's cabin in the morning, the two of them occasionally coming into town together for supplies. The gossip had not died down as Zara predicted. If anything, it intensified. But something else was happening too. People were getting used to seeing them together. The shock value wore off, and gradually, A few of the more open-minded townspeople began treating Zara slightly differently. Not exactly warmly, but with less suspicion. Mrs. Peterson, who ran the general store, started chatting with Zara about recipes. The blacksmith's wife asked Zara's advice about her daughter's persistent cough. Small things, but they mattered. Vincent also began to see the respect the townspeople had for Zara's skills, even when they kept their social distance. When the schoolteacher broke his arm in a fall, it was Zara everyone called for. She set the bone with such skill that the teacher regained full use of his arm. When a child came down with a dangerous fever that had the parents frantic, Zara stayed by the bedside for 2 days straight until the crisis passed. Watching her work, Vincent felt his admiration and love for her grow stronger. She was absolutely focused when treating someone, her hands steady and sure, her manner calm and reassuring. She never made her patients feel stupid or ashamed, even when their injuries or illnesses came from foolish mistakes. She simply fixed what was broken and sent them on their way with clear instructions for recovery. One cold morning, in late November, Vincent rode out to the cabin to find Zara already up and dressed, packing supplies into her saddlebags. She had purchased a horse a few weeks earlier, a gentle mare named Clover, so she could travel to distant patients more easily. "What is wrong?" Vincent asked. "A rider came before dawn," Zara said. "There is a family about 10 miles north, homesteaders who moved in last spring. Their youngest child has developed croup. The mother sounded desperate. I need to go right away." "I am coming with you," Vincent said. Zara looked up from her packing. "You do not have to. It could take all day, maybe longer depending on how bad the child is." "I am coming," Vincent repeated. "You should not travel alone in this weather. Besides, I can help." They rode north through country that grew rougher and more remote. Snow had started falling lightly, dusting the ground with white. The homestead, when they finally reached it, was a rough cabin even smaller than Zara's, with a barn and a few outbuildings that looked hastily constructed. A woman came running out as they approached. She looked haggard with worry, her eyes red from crying. "Thank God you came." "My baby," she can hardly breathe. Inside the cabin, Vincent saw a man trying to comfort 2 older children while a little girl, no more than 3 years old, struggled for breath in a makeshift crib. The child's breathing came in harsh, barking gasps, and her lips had a bluish tinge. Zara went immediately into healer mode, kneeling by the crib and examining the child. "How long has she been like this?" "Started yesterday evening," the mother said. "Got worse through the night." "I need hot water as much as you can boil," Zara said, "and I need this room to get very steamy." While the family rushed to comply, Zara pulled out various herbs and began preparing a treatment. Vincent helped where he could, following her instructions to the letter. They created a steam tent over the crib, boiling pot after pot of water and adding Zara's herbs to create a therapeutic vapor. Zara administered drops of a tincture to the child, getting them past her lips with patient persistence. It was a long, tense day. The child struggled and worsened before she began to improve, but by evening her breathing was easier and the bluish tint had left her lips. Zara stayed through the night, monitoring the child, adjusting the treatment. Vincent stayed too, keeping the fire going and the water boiling, supporting the exhausted parents. By morning, the child was clearly out of danger. She was breathing normally, even smiled when her mother gave her a little broth. The relief in the cabin was palpable. "Thank you," the father said, gripping Zara's hand with both of his. We do not have much money right now, but we will pay you. However long it takes, we will pay you." "Give me what you can afford," Zara said gently. "And if you have no money, a chicken or some eggs would be payment enough. I am just glad your daughter is well." The mother pressed a few coins into Zara's hand, clearly most of what they had, and gave her a jar of preserved peaches as well. As Vincent and Zara rode away, the whole family stood outside waving goodbye. "That child would have died without you," Vincent said once they were out of earshot. Zara shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe the croup would have resolved on its own. You never know for certain." "You know," Vincent said. "I watched you. You were not just treating symptoms. You knew exactly what was wrong and exactly what to do. That child is alive because of your skill." Zara looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes, a vulnerability. "Do you know how much that means to me, to hear you say that?" Most people do not understand. They think healing is just luck or folk wisdom. They do not see the years of study and practice and careful observation that goes into it. They do not see the responsibility, the weight of holding someone's life in your hands and knowing that one wrong decision could cost them everything. Vincent reached over and took her hand as they rode side by side. "I see it. I see you. All of you." That night, back at Zara's cabin, something shifted between them. The intensity of the day, the emotion of saving a child's life, had stripped away another layer of their defenses. After they had eaten and tended to the horses, they sat together by the fire, closer than they had sat before. "I need to tell you something," Zara said softly. "I am falling in love with you. I think I have been for a while now, and it terrifies me." Vincent turned to her, reaching up to cup her face gently. "Why does it terrify you?" "Because now I have something to lose. Before, I was alone, and there was a kind of safety in that. No one could hurt me because I did not let anyone close enough. But now, every time you ride away, I worry you will not come back. Every time you take a job for the railroad, I think about those men who ambushed you. And I realize that I have given you the power to break my heart." "Then we are even," Vincent said. "Because you have that same power over me. I love you, Zara. I am completely, helplessly in love with you. And yes, it is terrifying. But it is also the best thing that has ever happened to me." He kissed her then, and this kiss was different from the ones before. It was deeper, more urgent, full of the emotion they had been holding back. Zara's hands came up to tangle in his hair, and she pressed herself against him with a small sound of need. They broke apart, both breathing hard. "Vincent," Zara whispered, I think I want." "We should wait," Vincent said, even though every part of him was screaming to continue. "Until we are married, I want to do this right." Zara pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "Married?" Vincent realized what he had said. He had not planned this, had not thought it through. But now that the word was out there, he knew it was right. "Marry me," he said. "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a few months. But I also know that I want to spend my life with you. I want to help you with your healing work. I want to build a life together. I want to wake up beside you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. Marry me, Zara." Tears were streaming down Zara's face. "You are serious. Completely serious. I have never been more serious about anything in my life." "Yes," Zara said. "Yes, I will marry you." They held each other by the fire, laughing and crying at the same time, giddy with the enormity of what they had just decided. Later, when Vincent rode back to town, he felt like he was floating. Everything looked different, brighter, full of possibility. Over the next few weeks, they made plans. They decided to get married in December, a simple ceremony with a few witnesses. Vincent would continue working for the railroad, but he would build a house near Zara's cabin, expanding her property to include both a dwelling and a dedicated space for her healing work. They would live together, work together, build something permanent. Not everyone in town approved, of course. There were still whispers about the propriety of their relationship, about Zara's unsuitability as a wife. But there were also people who wished them well. Mrs. Peterson at the general store, offered to bake a cake for the wedding. The blacksmith offered to make them a new set of fireplace tools as a gift. The teacher whose arm Zara had set told them he would be honored to stand as a witness. The wedding took place on a cold, clear day in mid-December. The ceremony was held in Zara's cabin, too small for more than a handful of people. Zara wore a new dress of deep blue wool, simple but lovely. Vincent wore his best suit, cleaned and pressed for the occasion. A traveling minister happened to be passing through Verdi and agreed to perform the ceremony. The words were traditional, and when Vincent slipped a simple gold band onto Zara's finger and heard her promise to love and cherish him, he felt emotion well up so strongly he could barely speak his own vows. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister said. Vincent kissed his bride while their small gathering of friends applauded. When he pulled back, Zara was crying again, but she was also laughing. "We did it," she whispered. "We are actually married." "We are," Vincent confirmed. "You are stuck with me now." "Good," Zara said. "Because I am not letting you go." That night, in the cabin that was now legally theirs, they consummated their marriage. It was awkward and sweet and fumbling, two people learning each other for the first time. But it was also tender and full of love, and when they finally lay tangled together afterward, Vincent felt a peace he had never known before. "I love you," he murmured against Zara's hair. "I love you too," she replied, her hand resting over his heart. The winter months that followed were both challenging and beautiful. Vincent began building the new house, working on it whenever weather permitted. Meanwhile, he and Zara lived in the cabin, learning the rhythms of married life. They had their arguments, usually about small things like how much firewood to bring in or whether Zara was pushing herself too hard with her healing work. But they always talked through their disagreements, always came back to the core truth that they loved each other. Zara continued her healing work, and Vincent supported her fully. When she was called out in the middle of the night, he either went with her or stayed awake until she returned safely. When she was exhausted from a difficult case, he cooked dinner and rubbed her tired shoulders. When she doubted herself, he reminded her of all the lives she had saved. Vincent also found that married life agreed with him. Coming home to Zara, each day gave his life a structure and purpose it had lacked before. He worked harder, not just for his own sake, but for their future together. He took jobs that paid better, even if they were more difficult. He started saving money with real goals in mind: children someday, improvements to their property, security for their old age. One evening in February, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Zara said, "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" Vincent asked. "About children. Do you want them?" Vincent considered carefully. They had not discussed this in detail before. "I do," he said. "Someday. But only if you do. I know your healing work is important to you, and children would change everything." "They would," Zara agreed. "But I want them too. I want to raise sons and daughters who will see both their mother and father as equals, who will grow up understanding that there are many ways to live a good life, not just the narrow path society tries to force everyone onto." "We would make good parents," Vincent said. "Between your healing knowledge and my stubborn refusal to give up, we could teach them a lot." Zara laughed. "We could, though I hope they get your sense of humor and my common sense rather than the other way around." "I have common sense," Vincent protested. "You rode for 3 days with a bullet wound rather than stopping for help. That was different. I had the railroad payroll. My point stands." Vincent pulled her into his lap, kissing her soundly. "I love you, you infuriating woman." "I love you too, you impossible man," Zara replied, snuggling against him. Spring came, and with it new life. The meadows filled with wildflowers, and Zara spent long days gathering the herbs she would need for the coming year. Vincent worked on the house, making steady progress. By summer, the structure was complete, and they began moving their belongings into the new, larger space. The house was beautiful in its simplicity. 2 stories, with a bedroom upstairs and plenty of space downstairs for both living and Zara's healing work. Vincent had built a large workroom for her, with shelves for her supplies and a big table for preparing medicines. There was also a proper kitchen, much bigger than the cabins had been, and a comfortable parlor with a stone fireplace. "It is perfect," Zara said, standing in the middle of their new home with tears in her eyes. "I never imagined I would have something like this." "You deserve this and more," Vincent said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You deserve everything good this world has to offer." That summer, Zara missed her monthly courses. At first, she did not say anything, not wanting to get Vincent's hopes up if she was wrong. But by the second missed month, she was certain. "Vincent," she said one evening after dinner, "I am with child." Vincent stared at her, the words taking a moment to register. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. "Truly, you are certain as I can be. The signs are all there. I would say I am about 2 months along, which means the baby would come in late winter or early spring." Vincent let out a whoop of joy and picked her up, spinning her around carefully. "We are going to be parents." "Put me down before you make me dizzy," Zara said, laughing. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Zara continued her healing work, though Vincent insisted she let him do all the heavy lifting and traveling. She trained him in basic healing skills so he could assist with simpler cases. He proved to be a surprisingly good student, with gentle hands and a calm demeanor that put patients at ease. As Zara's belly grew, Vincent found himself falling in love with her all over again. She was beautiful pregnant, glowing with health and happiness. She talked to the baby constantly, telling it about the herbs she was preparing or the patients she was treating. Vincent would press his ear to her belly and swear he could feel the baby moving inside. "What should we name the baby?" Zara asked one evening as they lay in bed, Vincent's hand resting on her swollen stomach. "I have been thinking about that," Vincent said. "If it is a boy, what about Daniel? That was my father's name." "Daniel Zane," Zara said, trying it out. "I like it. And if it is a girl, Rose." "That was my grandmother's name. She was the one who first taught me about healing." "Rose Zane," Vincent said. "Perfect." Winter arrived early that year with heavy snows in December. Zara's belly was now huge and she moved carefully, aware of how clumsy she had become. Vincent barely let her do anything, constantly worried she would slip or hurt herself. Zara found it both touching and exasperating. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she said one day when Vincent tried to stop her from walking to the root cellar. "I know, but the ground is icy." "Let me get whatever you need." "Vincent Zane, I have delivered dozens of babies. I think I can handle walking to the cellar." But she let him come with her anyway, holding his arm for balance and secretly grateful for his attentiveness. In late February, Zara's labor began. It started gently, with mild contractions that grew progressively stronger. Vincent was beside himself with worry, but Zara remained calm. "This is normal," she told him. "First babies take time. We will be here for a while." She had prepared everything in advance, of course. Clean linens, hot water, all the herbs and medicines she might need. She had even trained Vincent on what to do, though she had also sent word to a midwife friend in town who had promised to come when the time arrived. The midwife, a capable woman named Ellen who Zara had worked with many times, arrived by late afternoon. Together, the 2 women worked through Zara's labor while Vincent paced and worried and generally tried to stay out of the way. "You should leave," Ellen told him at one point. Go to town, get a drink, come back in a few hours. I am not leaving, Vincent said firmly. I stay. Zara, between contractions, managed a smile. Let him stay. He will just worry more if he is away. Labor continued through the evening and into the night. It was hard work, and Zara was exhausted, but she never lost her composure. She breathed through the contractions, drank water when Ellen told her to, and pushed when the time came. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, a baby's cry filled the room. Ellen held up a tiny, squalling infant. It is a boy, a healthy boy. Vincent felt tears streaming down his face as Ellen cleaned the baby and handed him to Zara. The infant was red and wrinkled and perfect. Zara cradled him to her chest, tears falling on his tiny face. Daniel, she whispered. Our Daniel. Vincent knelt by the bed, reaching out to touch his son's tiny hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around one of Vincent's, gripping with surprising strength. Hello, son, Vincent said, his voice breaking. Welcome to the world. Those first weeks with a newborn were exhausting. Daniel was a healthy baby but demanded constant attention. Zara nursed him frequently, and Vincent learned to change diapers and walk the floor with a crying infant in the middle of the night. They were both sleep-deprived and overwhelmed, but they were also happier than they had ever been. The townspeople surprised them with their generosity. Many women who had kept Zara at a distance before now stopped by with gifts for the baby, handmade blankets and tiny clothes. They gave Zara advice, showed her tricks for soothing a fussy infant, welcomed her into the unofficial community of mothers. I think having a baby has made me respectable, Zara told Vincent one night as they watched Daniel sleep in his cradle. You were always respectable, Vincent said. They are just finally seeing what I saw all along. As spring arrived and then summer, baby Daniel grew and thrived. He was a happy child, quick to smile and fascinated by everything around him. Vincent was a devoted father, playing with his son every spare moment and proudly showing him off to anyone who would look. Zara gradually returned to her healing work, though she had to adjust her schedule around Daniel's needs. She nursed him between patients, and sometimes had him sleeping in a basket beside her while she prepared medicines. Far from being a hindrance, the baby actually seemed to put people more at ease. Mothers especially liked seeing that Zara understood the challenges of caring for a child firsthand. When Daniel was 6 months old, Zara realized she was pregnant again. She told Vincent one evening after they had put Daniel to bed. Vincent's response was immediate joy. Another baby. That is wonderful. We are going to have our hands full, Zara said. 2 children under 2 years old. We will manage, Vincent said confidently. We managed with Daniel, did we not? Their second child, a daughter they named Rose as planned, was born the following spring. Rose came faster than Daniel had and with less fuss. She was a tiny thing, smaller than her brother had been, but fierce and determined from the start. Now, with 2 small children, life became even more hectic. Vincent took fewer jobs that required him to be away for long periods, focusing instead on local work that let him come home every night. Zara cut back her healing practice, seeing only urgent cases and patients who could come to their house rather than requiring home visits. But even with the challenges, they were content. Their home was filled with laughter and chaos and love. Daniel grew into a curious toddler who followed his mother around asking endless questions about her herbs. Rose was more reserved but intensely observant, watching everything with her father's sharp eyes. The years passed quickly. Daniel and Rose were joined by a 3rd child, another son they named Samuel, when Daniel was 4 and Rose was 3. Samuel was a placid, easy-going baby who seemed content to simply exist while his older siblings created havoc around him. Vincent continued working for the railroad, advancing to a position that involved more planning and less dangerous fieldwork. He was good at his job, respected by his employers and coworkers. The money was steady and decent, enough to support his growing family comfortably. Zara remained the primary healer for Verdi and the surrounding area. Her reputation had only grown over the years, and people traveled from considerable distances to seek her help. She taught her children about herbs and healing from a young age, though she made it clear they were free to choose their own paths when they grew older. When Vincent was 38 and Zara was 37, they had one more child, a daughter they named Lily. By this point, they felt like seasoned parents, and Lily's arrival, though joyful, was less overwhelming than their first children had been. Daniel was 12, Rose was 11, and Samuel was 8. The older children adored their baby sister, taking turns helping care for her. Vincent and Zara had built something neither of them could have imagined back when he stumbled into her clearing, dying from infection and fever. They had a family, a home, a place in the community. They had love that had deepened and matured over the years, weathering challenges and celebrating triumphs together. One evening, after all the children were finally asleep, Vincent and Zara sat together on the porch of their house, watching the stars come out over the mountains. "Do you remember the day we met?" Vincent asked. "How could I forget?" Zara said. "You scared me half to death, crashing through the brush like a wounded bear. I thought you were a hallucination. I thought I was dying and my mind was conjuring beautiful women to ease my passing." Zara laughed softly. "I was hardly beautiful. I was covered in dirt from digging roots." "You were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen," Vincent said seriously. "You still are." Zara leaned her head on his shoulder. "Who would have thought?" "When I came to Nevada, I was running away from pain and disappointment. I thought I would spend my life alone, and I had made peace with that. And then you stumbled into my life and changed everything." "You healed me," Vincent said. "Not just my body, though you certainly did that. But you healed my soul too. You taught me how to hope again, how to love, how to build something that matters. You gave me a family and a home and a reason to get up every morning." "You did the same for me," Zara said. "You saw me for who I truly was, not what society thought I should be. You supported my work and my dreams. You gave me children and a partnership unlike anything I had imagined possible. You are the best man I have ever known, Vincent Zane." They sat together in comfortable silence, hands entwined, watching the night deepen around them. Inside the house, their children slept safely. Around them, the land they had made their own stretched out in all directions. And above them, the stars wheeled through the sky, constant and eternal. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own joys and sorrows. Daniel grew into a thoughtful young man who decided to become a doctor, inspired by his mother's healing work, but wanting to learn formal medicine as well. Vincent and Zara scraped together the money to send him to medical school in San Francisco, proud beyond words when he graduated with honors. Rose surprised everyone by falling in love with ranching. She married a kind young man who owned land north of Verdi, and together they built a successful cattle operation. She also maintained an interest in healing, often consulting with her mother about treating sick livestock. Samuel became a teacher, gentle and patient like his father, beloved by his students. He married a woman from the neighboring town and settled close enough that he could visit his parents often. Lily, the youngest, showed the strongest healing gift of all the children. From the time she could walk, she followed Zara everywhere, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. By the time she was 15, she could prepare most common medicines herself. She eventually took over much of Zara's practice as Zara grew older, ensuring that the community would continue to have a skilled healer. Vincent and Zara grew old together, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing down, but their love never diminished. If anything, it deepened, the passion of youth transforming into something richer and more profound. They knew each other completely, could read each other's moods with a glance, could finish each other's sentences. They spent their later years mostly at home, surrounded by children and eventually grandchildren. Daniel married and had 3 children. Rose had 4, Samuel had 2, and Lily, who married late, had twins just before Zara turned 60. On warm evenings, the whole family would gather at the house Vincent had built all those years ago. The children would run and play while the adults talked and laughed. Zara would sit in her rocking chair, knitting or mending, while Vincent told stories of the old days to any grandchild who would listen. "Tell us about how you met Grandma," they would beg, and Vincent would oblige, making the story dramatic and exciting, though Zara would interrupt occasionally to correct his embellishments. "I was not actually glowing with heavenly light," she would say dryly. "You were to me," Vincent would insist. When Vincent was 68 and Zara was 67, Vincent fell ill with pneumonia. It came on quickly, despite Zara's best efforts to treat it. For 2 weeks, she barely left his side, using every skill she had learned over a lifetime of healing. Their children came, gathering around his bedside, but Vincent rallied, fighting the illness with the same stubborn determination that had characterized his entire life. "You are not leaving me yet," Zara told him fiercely, spooning medicine into his mouth. "We have more years together." "You promised me." "I am not going anywhere," Vincent managed to say, his voice weak but determined. "I am too stubborn to die." He recovered slowly but completely. The scare made them both acutely aware of how precious their remaining time together was. They made the most of every day, taking walks when weather permitted, sitting together for hours just talking or existing in comfortable silence, telling their children and grandchildren how much they loved them. Vincent lived to the age of 79. He died peacefully in his sleep one spring night, Zara curled beside him as she had been for nearly 50 years of marriage. She woke to find him gone, his face peaceful, a slight smile on his lips. Zara grieved deeply but not desperately. They had been blessed with so many years together, so much love and joy and family. She had been by his side at the end, and that was a gift. She continued living for several more years, teaching Lily and her grandchildren everything she knew about healing, spending time with her large and loving family, and keeping Vincent's memory alive through stories and laughter. When Zara passed away at the age of 83, she was surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Her last words were reported by Lily, who held her hand at the end. "Tell your father I am coming," Zara whispered, and then she was gone. They buried her next to Vincent on the property they had built together, under the pine trees with a view of the mountains. The funeral was attended by dozens of people whose lives she had touched, people she had healed or delivered or simply helped through difficult times. The town of Verdi had long since accepted her, had come to treasure her, and they mourned her loss deeply, but her legacy lived on. Lily continued the healing tradition, as did several of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The house Vincent built still stood, occupied by descendants who treasured it. And the story of the cowboy who stumbled into a clearing, dying from a bullet wound, and found not just healing but love, was passed down through generations as a testament to the power of chance encounters and opened hearts. In the end, Vincent and Zara had built exactly what they both needed but never dared to dream they deserved. A life filled with purpose, passion, and profound love. They had healed each other in every way that mattered, and their story became part of the land itself, woven into the fabric of that wild country where they had found each other against all odds. The mountains still stood tall over Verde, Nevada. The forest still grew thick with medicinal plants. And somewhere in the spring air, if you listened carefully on quiet evenings, you could almost hear the echo of their laughter, the sound of two souls who had found each other and never let go.